Hi everyone, my name's Tim. This is a video where I talk about what I read in August. Is it middle of September? Yes. Are we gonna do this video anyway? Also yes. So here's the pile. Ooh. First thing I read was How to Be Like Walt by Pat Williams. This is a really, really good biography of Walt Disney and what his life, his career. Each part of it also had like a self-help management style book, so that was quite interesting as well to read. Some parts were more interesting than others. So it was, putting Walt in a very, very good light, which is understandable. It is a bit of a puff piece, but it is still. I actually learned quite a lot, and then going to Disneyland and going on the Walt Disney Studios tour really helped cement a lot of this information. So that was really interesting. So I gave it 4 stars. Next up was actually a book that I got from the library, so I have returned it. It is the Doctor Who 11th Doctor Omnibus 2nd edition. It's a graphic novel. It's a collection of 6 or 7 different stories, and it was the 11th Doctor, Amy Pond, who I don't really like that much, but Rory Williams, who was one of my favourite companions. And I really enjoyed this. There were lots of really interesting stories. There were Silurians, there were weird time-expanding art gallery that was quite interesting. Really enjoyed it. And actually, when I went back to the library with my kids, I saw it there and I was like, oh, I could just read it again, because it was very easy to read. The art style was different in every story, because different artists, and some I liked more than others, but I still really enjoyed the story element, and it felt like the 11th Doctor and Amy and Rory actually felt like that, so that was good. So I gave that 5 stars. Next was Mistress of All Evil by Serena Valentino. This is a special edition. This is the 4th in the Villains series. I've done a review on this, but I think this is much better than the previous, and if when I read Mother's Knows Best, if I like that, then I might get the rest. But I've got 5 of them at the moment. I'm not sure if I'll get the rest. This I gave 3 stars because even though it was better, it still had. Every book has been incredibly melodramatic, which I think is part of the charm of it. But for me, it was a bit too much. But yeah, so 3 stars. Next, I read this, which I haven't reviewed yet on here because I was on holiday. Drawn to Greatness, Disney's Animation Renaissance by Michael Lyons. So this, my sister-in-law bought my wife, so I stole it and I read it. And this is focused purely on the Disney Renaissance, as they said, which is known to start with The Little Mermaid and finish with Tarzan. The thing is this actually, so this says, each Disney animated film from Oliver and Company through to The Emperor's New Groove is captured in detail. And I'm like, they're not really the Renaissance. But no, this is, it's not it doesn't have that narrative pull of some non-fiction. It is just a bunch of essays about each set of films. So there's a chapter that's about Toy Story, James and the Giant Peach, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, for example. And actually, this is one of the problems with the book, is that it includes things that I wouldn't count as the Disney Renaissance, such as Nightmare Before Christmas, James and the Giant Peach, and it includes some Pixar films, when they were a completely different company at that point. So that was, and it's interesting to go behind the scenes, to learn about some of this stuff. A lot of this stuff I kind of knew already, but some stuff was definitely new and interesting. One thing that you could tell what Michael Lyons, who has the Disorder podcast, where they look at each Disney film. I started listening to that, but I only got like 1 or 2 in. But my sister-in-law listens to it all the time. But you could tell what parts interest him more. So one thing that I found really interesting was how each animated film in the Renaissance, they use computer technology more and more and more. One thing that I didn't enjoy was that every single chapter had a plot synopsis about the film. So if you have, a chapter that's about 2 or 3 films, like that one I just said, you get 3 plot synopses, and each of those are about a page. And this, seeming as this covers, I don't know, 15, 20 films, like that's 15, 20 pages. I just skipped it. But I enjoyed it. I think I would have enjoyed it more if I hadn't just read How to Be Like Walt, because I think How to Be Like Walt is better. One thing that this does have is he obviously does loads of interviews, and he did work for the Walt Disney Company, so he does have a lot of knowledge. I just think it's not quite as good as How to Be Like Walt. I think partly because there is a lot more information on this. So if you watch Waking Sleeping Beauty on Disney Plus, that has all of this, that covers the Renaissance, and that covers a lot of this. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Still a good book. I think maybe I just read it at the wrong time. And then next, I read 2 books on my Kindle. So the first one was Tainted, which was a YA dystopian novel. I read most of this in the queue for getting a rental car at the airport, because this Kindle is very small and very light. It's nice. It was a free self-published book on the Kindle that I downloaded a while ago, and it's like it was published, I think 2014, something like that, published in the middle of the YA dystopian craze, and it's the most YA dystopian book I've ever read. It hits all of the tropes that I think people would like, and the author is doing that on purpose to hook readers into buying the next book. And you have an underground bunker. You find out that maybe right at the end, these people who are tainted, which have this disease, and they people are removed and they are never seen again. Maybe there's something special about them. But the main focus of the writer and the story is the relationship between Elle, the main character, and Sebastian, her basically love interest. It's a romance book without the romance, yet they just flirt really awkwardly, like from page 1. And he opens the door and he hasn't got a shirt on, and she can't get eye contact with him, all that kind of thing. And it does that very well, and it was quite melodramatic in a YA fashion, but it still was. It didn't hook me enough to buy the next book. But me, as a 35-year-old man, 10 years after the YA dystopian craze, I'm probably not the market. So I hope she's done well, and I hope the author has done well and has got loads of book sales out of it, because I do think it does what it needed to do and does it very well. So that's 3 stars. Next, and finally, I read Call of the Herald by Brian Rathbone. So I did a review on this, and I didn't think I did a very good job explaining what I liked about it. So I'm going to go into a bit more detail here. So I said I liked the world. So one thing is that the main character, Catherine, in this world, like thousands of years ago, there was a huge meteor shower, and that meteor shower gave certain people magic, powers, things like that. And this was deemed as a herald of the goddess. And what happened was there were 2 countries that were both inheriting, understanding the goddess in different ways, and were fighting over it. And then a 3rd country came in and completely wiped them out, because these 2 had weakened each other so much. This 3rd country came in, the Zhao Empire, I want to say. It's kind of a funny spelling. And wiped them out, and they're now like the ruling group. And now, thousands of years later, this meteor shower has started again, and that's where she gets her power from. So she can feel, there's like a first meteor that comes, and she feels this strange thing inside her that she's learning to understand. But throughout the book, the meteor's gone, and she can feel her powers waning, which is a good way of adding tension, because this is quite a soft magic system. I'm not really a fan of those phrases, but yeah, it's quite a soft system in terms of she could just feel things, and she doesn't know how she could do them. There's no like hard, it's a Tuesday, that means you get flying powers. There's none of that. So it could be very easy for the writer to lean on this as a crutch and she could do exactly the magic that she needs to do when she needs to do it. This is what Gandalf can do in Lord of the Rings. He does whatever he needs to do. And he doesn't do that. The writer doesn't do that. The writer, because her powers are actually waning as we reach the crescendo of the book, it adds way more tension. Her powers still are very vague, and she can like read emotions. She can make light from her hands. She can control the earth. She does like a big earthquake, and then she can like control lightning at the end, and that kind of really drains her powers. Yeah, so I liked that. I liked the magic in it. I liked the history of the world. One thing, this is again another free self-published book, trying to get you to read the next one. It was formatted really well. So let me see if I can just bring it up, because each chapter had a really cool. Let me just see if I can find it. Just give me a second. Had a cool like dragon across the top and the name of the chapter, and then like a quote, and it was a quote from a fictional character in the world. So look, so here we go. So look, every chapter had one of those, and then the page breaks were like a little picture of the woman of Katrin walking, which I thought was, I haven't seen that in an ebook before, and that's something that I would like to do in my book. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, otherwise it wasn't extraordinary. But I did like, and one thing as well that I thought was I can understand why they did it, but it felt very clunky, and it felt like it's something that you wouldn't get in a published book. I think editors, publishers, agents would see that and go, no, don't do that. Katrin is sitting in her school, and she's very bored, and she's not paying attention, but then she gets a history lesson. And the history lesson is all of the lore of the world that we need to know at that point. Telling us about thousands of years ago, the meteorites came, the goddess, this other army came in, and like it's like the third chapter in the book, and it's just a big history lesson. So it's a huge lore dump, and it's something that I think I would be surprised if you would find it in that way in a traditionally published book, I think. But yeah, so those were all of the books. These are all the books I read in August. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total, which is what I aimed to do when I spanned the wheel. But there were 2 things that I didn't read. One of which was the classics, which was 101 Fairy Tales by the Brothers Grimm. I got about halfway through this by the end of the month, and then I've now finished it, so I will post a review of that. And the other one, which was an ongoing series, Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. I didn't pick this one up, and when it got close to the holiday, I knew I wasn't going to read this month in August, for 2 main reasons. One of them very objective, one of them very subjective. I'll do the objective one first. It's a big book. Like, I've got to try and fit this. I had to try and fit this in a suitcase. Like, we're going on holiday for 2 weeks with kids, and like came back with like pool noodles and a giant chicken that screams. That's hey hey for my sister-in-law. This is a big book. Not only is it's not super thick, but it's just very big. So no way was it going to fit in the suitcase. I was flicking through this and just found a bookmark as well. Bonus. And the second, more subjective reason is I just wasn't in the mood for it, and at the moment it feels a bit like a chore to read this. You see, I think it's rated 3.5 or something like that on Goodreads, which is very low. So I would say for a Goodreads book, most 3.8 up, I would say is like fine. When it gets to that 3.5, seeing as how many people have rated this, 'cause it's a very popular book, it's a little bit worrying. And the first one, when I read it, I really liked it, but it hasn't really stuck with me that much. The film, again, I enjoyed, but it's the kind of book and film that I really like, because I like all the stuff in it, I like the story, but Easter eggs, all that kind of thing. But if anyone comes out and says it's rubbish and these are the reasons, I'm like, nah, I can't really defend it. So yeah, so that's why I haven't quite read that one yet. It's on my shelf. But anyway, that's everything I've read in August. So let me know if you like these reading wrap-ups. Let me just move the tablet to the front. Let me know if you like these reading wrap-ups. If you want me to do a full review on Drawn to Greatness, put it in the comments below. Drew me a little mouse emoji, so I know that for Mickey Mouse. So, otherwise, thank you very much. Now, kindly get out of my house.